Okay, so what I wanted to talk about now, and I'll also show this as a separate video, so if you're just tuning in right now and you are watching this as a separate video, then hello. First of all, before I start talking, or before I start getting really into it, you should probably see this video clip, which I'm going to be talking about. I'll put the link to it in the description box. So the gist of it is that there was a discussion on Skypapers about the Orlando shootings, and it was hosted by Mark Longhurst, and the guests were Julia Hartley-Brewer and Owen Jones. So Owen Jones is a gay man, and the other two people here are not. They're not LGBT people. Now, I'm not trying to say, when I talk about this, I'm not trying to say that Mark or Julia are homophobic people. Not intentionally so anyway. I think that there's different types of homophobia, and I think that there's a difference between the privilege of being straight and cis and perhaps the unintentional homophobia and being out and out I hate gay people. So I'm in no way, I should definitely say this, trying to say that these people are evil, that these people hate gay people or anything like that. This is an example of straight privilege. It's an example of the way that straight people or straight cis people talk over the LGBT community on issues that directly impact us and how frustrating and harmful it is. I should also say before I get into this, obviously, I mean, I hope, and I think I can be pretty certain that the people who watch my channel are not the sort of people that would send hate to people, but I need to say anyway, of course, do not send these people hate. I know you wouldn't anyway, but I do need to say that. I think it's important that we are respectful to each other online, no matter what our opinions, and I don't think these people are evil people or anything like that. This is just an example of privilege. Okay, now would be a really good time for you to watch the clip. So in the clip, the Orlando massacre is discussed. Obviously it's quite upsetting. It's not graphically discussed, it's more a discussion of the shooter and the motivations and all that sort of thing. But during the discussion, Owen Jones, who is a gay man, starts to talk about the fact that this was a homophobic hate crime. Now for some odd reason, and if you think into it too much it becomes sinister, because I'm not sure why you would derail this or deflect from this. The other two people on the show, so Julia and Mark, well, it's mostly Mark actually, to be fair on Julia, start to assert that this is not really just an attack on gay people, it's an attack on people trying to live their lives, on people having fun. And yes, you know what, it is an attack on people having fun and trying to live their lives. But it's also, and I think we can be pretty certain, this is an attack on the LGBT community. So this is a homophobic hate crime. It's an attack against LGBT people in particular. Why on earth we would need to deflect from that, why Owen Jones needed to be corrected on that point, that's the bit that seems dodgy to me, and that's the bit that made me angry. It reminds me a bit of the All Lives Matter movement, and I've spoken about this before. Obviously the Black Lives Matter came because, especially in America, there's a lot of police brutality specifically targeted towards the black community. And Black Lives Matter is a way of saying Black Lives Matter too, and yet white people have started to say all lives matter, which, although they think that they're trying to be equal and we're all humans and we're all suffering together, yes, we're all humans, but Black Lives Matter implies all lives matter because the black lives are the lives that aren't currently being treated the same as everyone else. So it's very erasing to do that. So Owen Jones continues to assert that this is a homophobic hate crime. And yet Julia tells him, yeah, or maybe it is, but, you know, the shooter would also hate me because I'm a gobby woman. Like, it's unnecessary. It's an unnecessary comment. We don't know what the shooter thought. What we know is that people were targeted in an LGBT venue. We can be pretty sure that this person wanted to kill and hurt LGBT people. The derailment is frustrating at best and harmful at worst. It's ignorant. So Owen Jones is getting visibly quite frustrated. After a while of this, he says to Mark, who's hosting, "You don't understand this, Mark, because you're not gay." To which point Mark gets very annoyed, and you can see Julia getting annoyed too. And this often happens when someone with privilege has their privilege challenged, or it's pointed out that their reality as someone with privilege is different to someone from an oppressed or marginalised group. Again, I'm not trying to say they're bad people, but often people with privilege, and we all have, a lot of us have privilege in one way or another, and it's something we have to get through, but we can go on the defensive when this privilege is pointed out, which is what happens in a very ugly way here, because Mark thinks that he's being told that he can't care about what happens because he's straight. Julia on Twitter makes an odd tweet saying that, oh, she's not allowed to be sad about the 50 dead people because she's straight, which is not what Owen is saying. What Owen is saying, what I believe he is saying, as someone who's LGBT myself, is that unless you are part of that group that's been targeted, you don't have that full understanding. This is, without doubt, an LGBT hate crime. And to have that erased is frustrating. It feels like your voices aren't being heard. It feels like when we need this visibility, we need people to come together and stand with the LGBT community, it feels like this is being co-opted by people, for example, there's a lot of people out there who want to focus on the fact they believe the shooter was Muslim. I don't know what's come out about the shooter since, but at this point, we really weren't sure. And suddenly you had all these people who previously don't care about the LGBT community in the slightest, like really, some of them are quite homophobic, but they see this as an opportunity to suddenly be angry about this attack because they believe the shooter is Muslim, which is wrong on so many levels. It's just despicable. So Owen starts to get very, very annoyed during this debate. After this is constantly derailed, he's spoken over. That whole attitude, it's not said, but the whole attitude of this piece, if you watch it, is that he's being very patronised. It's like he doesn't understand, it's like he's a child, it's like he's sulking, it's like he's having a bit of a fit, like a bit of a hissy fit on screen, and they patronise him a bit. And you can see he's getting angry, and he says, I can't believe this. And I just want to say, Owen, if you are watching this, I doubt you are, that so many of us were with you on that. Like, I really shared your frustrations watching that as an LGBT person. I felt that, and so many of us did, and I just want to say thank you so much for not going along with it, for the fact that Owen goes on to walk out of this, basically, and that's the big headline. And a lot of people have said he's having a hissy fit. Despicably, I did speak to Julia afterwards on her Twitter. I'll tell you what was spoken about in a minute, but she asserted that she and Owen Jones were friends, and she was not the cause of this, and I'm not just trying to pin the blame on her. It's an overall... The anger is not just at these two people, it's at the overall... It's this privilege in society. It's the fact that straight people or straight cis people feel like they can talk over the LGBT community. It sort of feels like tone policing. It feels like when we get angry over something which is genuinely deserving of anger, we're treated like toddlers, like we're kicking off for no good reason. It's patronising, and that is homophobic. Julia then went on to retweet some tweets, one where Owen Jones is accused of having a hissy fit because he walked off, which is, can I just say how despicable I think that is. I don't think, another example of privilege here, straight privilege in this example, is I don't think people realise who aren't LGBT how much this particular attack, it hurts, it feels, it's shocking, and I'm not trying to say that it's worse because it's against LGBT people. Any attack on human life is awful, but you have to understand, if you're not LGBT, that when you see people like you being specifically targeted, apparently for just what we are, and in a place like America, and that's not far away, that sends a shiver down your spine. It makes you feel unsafe, it makes you feel angry. It's so deeply upsetting. And any loss of life, of course, is completely upsetting. I'm not saying that only LGBT people have the right to be upset about this, but you have to understand how this feels differently for us. Just as how when a black person is killed by police in America, obviously the black community are going to feel that on a personal level. We all, hopefully, find that shocking and are doing what we can to help. But it's going to feel that little bit different to the person from that marginalised or oppressed group. At one point during the discussion, Owen Jones was accused of trying to take ownership of the horror of the crime. I found that comment to be pure naked evil. And I'm sure, you know what, the worst thing is I don't think it was meant to be so hateful as that. I think it's privilege again. I think that people who aren't LGBT in this instance don't understand how incredibly wrong it is to tell someone. Obviously, I think pretty much all of us in the LGBT community who who know what was going on feel pretty shaken by what happened. And then to accuse Owen Jones calls it what it is, basically. He says this is a homophobic hate crime, this is awful. And for doing that, he's accused of wanting to take ownership. Why on earth would a gay man want to take it's despicable to even imply that. It's absolutely no wonder to me that Owen Jones walked off that set, to be honest. I think he lasted for longer than most of us would have. I probably would have started crying because, when that sort of thing happens, I tend to get angry, but I have angry tears. So, I don't know what happened when he went off set, but I think he was so composed, and he spoke about what he believed in. He spoke for a great deal of us, I think, and for that I thank him, but it's just unbelievable to see someone from our community treated like that, especially when it's our community which has been targeted in this attack, and yet he was basically treated like a tantruming child, and it's simply not good enough. So as I've already said, I've spoken to Julia Hartley Brewer on Twitter after this all kicked off, but since that, She's posted a lot of very unsavoury things on her Twitter. Again, this is not me trying to say go after her, please do not do that. This is me trying to show you an example of someone who has privilege. A straight person who has privilege, doesn't understand their privilege, the frustration of a person who... The idea of having privilege is that you can live in your ignorance quite safely. You can just turn away from the harm that you're causing and still reassure yourself that you're a good person and you're in the right, basically. You face no real repercussions. She's actually compared Owen Jones to ISIS, actually. She thinks that he has something in common with ISIS because he apparently wants to silence other people. That is how incredibly ignorant people with privilege can be, because they feel like when people from oppressed or marginalised groups speak up about issues which directly impact them, they feel like they are being silenced when they're told they have privilege. That is not what it feels like to be silenced. I just want to say right now, Julia, I'm sure Julia's not watching this, but if you are, you're not being silenced. You're not being silenced. You're talking on Twitter right now. You're making response pieces. Your voice is heard. It's not being silenced to be called out. If you have an opinion, you put that opinion out there, and that is your right, and I respect that. But people coming to you and telling you that they think that opinion is wrong, and that they think that your opinion on that as a straight woman is not so valuable in this situation as someone who is gay, a gay man, to be honest, that's not being silenced, is it? Really? The way this privilege can turn toxic and is so harmful to the community is that a member of the community tweeted to Julia, and this member of the community called Betty Karen said, "I'm standing with him on this one. Stop trying to silence us as a community and start listening." There's nothing hateful in that. There's nothing silencing in that. That's another opinion on a forum like Twitter where other opinions can be heard. And the response to that from Julia is get a grip, love. And it just makes me so angry. It's privilege personified, really. When someone says, please listen to our community, please listen to a community which is getting killed all over the world, a community where we are suffering, please listen to us as someone with privilege, and you get told to get a grip, it's disgusting. So my conversation with Julia, just a couple of responses went back and forth. Julia posted, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm straight, so apparently I'm not allowed to care if 50 gay people are shot dead. I didn't get that memo." So I responded to her, "The point is that you spoke over a gay man on issues of homophobia and minimised the homophobic nature of the attack." She then went on to say, "If you have just watched the video online, that does not show the first few minutes." I said, in fact, I had seen that video, it shows the first few minutes, but then I said to her, "And you must admit the strange way Owen was corrected when calling this a homophobic hate crime was odd at best." Julia said, "He wasn't corrected, we simply pointed out that we had already stated that repeatedly." Many other people have tried to educate Julia, have tried to get her to understand. I tweeted her again on one of her other comments, which I haven't got a screenshot here, and I just said to her, please try to see this from the perspective of someone who's LGBT. I mean, I believe in being polite to people, obviously. Again, please don't send her any hatred at all. I'm sure people who follow this channel wouldn't, because as you know, there's like this big no-hate policy here. I despise it. I think that it kills debate. I think that it's important that we're able to be open and with each other and have these conversations. But people have tried to plead with her, and now there's this idea that free speech, there's this horrible idea floating around because of this incident that somehow free speech is being destroyed by political correctness. This always comes up in issues like this, and it doesn't make any sense. Free speech is not being destroyed. These people are able to have their free speech. Just because people are disagreeing with them doesn't mean they don't have free speech. Free speech doesn't mean you have to be agreed with by everyone all the time. That's not what it means. So the last tweet that's posted by Julia is, "The Orlando shooting is not about Owen Jones, despite what his hate mob think." There's an article she wrote, which I have read, but I'm not going to talk about here. I think it's disgusting to act like Owen Jones has had a hate mob. He's specifically sent out a tweet straight after it happened saying, "Please lay off Julia, none of the hatred towards her is condoned by me." You know, he very specifically said that. The hate mob is not from him. I think it's just disgusting, and it's further insult to a man who is gay after this terrible thing has happened, to paint him as someone, to paint him as the villain here, really, to paint him as someone who had a tantrum, someone who is unreasonable, someone who is an adult almost. The way he's being spoken to is like he's a child, and now people are acting like he's some sort of hate monger, like he's actually being compared to ISIS at this point. It's absolutely ludicrous. So I just wanted to speak out about that briefly. The privilege is unreal. You know I talk about LGBT issues a lot, and this one really, really got to me. I also want to say, I don't know, I'm pretty sure Owen Jones wouldn't be watching this, but if you are watching this, Owen, then thank you so much for what you did. Obviously, I know it's not about you, it's not about me, it's not about any of us, but the fact that these people are trying to silence us, and all over the world the LGBT community is being silenced, and you don't know how much it means and how inspirational it is to see someone like you being open, speaking up for us, refusing to be silenced, refusing to take any bullshit, really. It means a lot, and it's very inspiring. I find it especially inspiring, and I'm sure a lot of others do too, so thank you very much for that. Okay guys, hope you enjoyed this video, hope you haven't become too angry. Fingers crossed that the world becomes a better place soon. I hope so, I really hope so. Okay, I love you loads, and I'll see you soon. Bye!